Hello and welcome to Scrapping on the Fly. My name is Kristen and today I am going to do some mixed media, and I recorded this talking and then decided that I needed to cut enough out that I voiced over the whole thing. So I'm talking about the size of the box. This box is almost 7 inches tall, which is a little tall for me. I prefer it to be maybe about 4 or 5 inches at most. This is just a potato chip box, but it was more than 12 by 12, and so it works for me for now until I can find the right thing. So this box has a slit in the bottom, and so I just make sure to cover that. That's just a tip for you. If you find a box similar to this, make sure there are no holes or cracks. Put something down underneath your box or on the bottom of your box. So I have a bunch of different stencils that I use, and they're all made out of paper because I've created them on my Cricut. I have a couple that are dollar store ones that I use, but I typically use this with ink pads. And today I'm going to be sharing some of the things that I have taught myself and learned with Distress Oxide inks, as well as some Delusions shimmer and non-shimmer sprays and Mica Mist. So all of my sprays are by Ranger, and so that's what I'm going to go over some things. At some point in the beginning of this video, I did say, disclaimer, I am new to this, so don't take everything I say to the bank, because this is pretty new for me and I've just mostly learned from teaching myself. So I'm talking about the things that you need to have. So the box is one. Paper towels are always good. And then these are wipes. These are not for my stencils. I use paper stencils. There are certain kinds of wipes that are better for you to use on like Mylar stencils that don't damage them. That's just wipes for my hands. And I open the pack of wipes, and if I just have a little ink on my fingers, I will just clean it off with the wipe still in the package so that it stays moist longer and I can use it over and over again if all I'm doing is getting the ink off my fingers. So I'm just going to share a couple of stencils with you that I've created. Like I said, on my Cricut, that's a Mylar, or I guess it's Mylar. It's from the dollar store. I use you're going to see a lot of stars because I created these to make background layouts for my Star Wars scrapbook layout that I did not that long ago for our trip to Disney World. And so I have sprayed through all of these. Like I said, they're made out of cardstock. Typically I use whatever color I have the most of. I got a lot of hot pink. So that is an 11.5 by 11.5 star I made myself. It wasn't something I found on my Cricut design space. I just made a bunch of stars and some circles and put them around the page. So I'm pointing out, this is a page that I did with a circle stencil I created. And because I can only make it 11.5 by 11.5 on my Cricut, it leaves a 1/2 inch border on the top and side. And so I just use borders to cover that, or I cut the paper down after I'm done spraying or before I spray, and just mat the whole thing. So that's a big pile of them that I've made. Some of them I literally make them for stenciling, like that star one you're looking at right now. Some of them that I'll share with you are the negatives from what I've cut. Like that was a die cut that I created for my one of the 30 days of sketches, and that is a stencil that I already had the circle cut out. I just taped it to a big piece of paper that's just like the cover from something, so that I could spray a circle on a page without ink everywhere. This is one of my new stencils. I love it. It's real thin though, so it bleeds a lot, but I'm okay with that because it just adds a lot of really cool texture. I used a red Delusion spray and a black Shimmer Spray through that. It came out awesome. This is the circle stencil that I showed you just a minute ago on that Halloween layout. There's another one that I created. And then this is a layout that I created with the rainbow colors that I sprayed through it. And then I did a lift before I dried it. I put the paper down on top of it and it picked up the extra ink that was on top of the circles. And I really love doing that because think it turns out really cool. And B, I'm not wasting all that ink. It gives me an extra background layout or a mat. I made the hexagon one and the little squares. That right there is from the Tree of Life that I created for my Disney Animal Kingdom spread. And I used that on a page. I sprayed through it like a stencil, and then I picked it up and turned it over in different places on the page so that the extra ink would go on the paper. It turned out really cool. I did a layout share yesterday, I believe, and it has those pages on it. So these are my inks. Right now, I started with 3 back in May, and now I have all of these and a few that don't fit because they're too tall. And I love them. They're just so great, and they last a while because, well, it depends on how much you spray, I suppose. I do a lot more of the scattering and not the spraying, depending on what's going on and what I'm doing. But if I'm doing a full background, I usually do a lot of spraying. So the Distress Oxides and the Shimmers have a little ball inside that activates whatever it is that's in there that makes it so fabulous. So you have to shake them up until the bottom does not have the extra pigment in it. And then I was showing you my little Tim Holtz mister. My Tim Holtz mister. If you're using Distress Oxides, you can spray them and then spray the water, and it gives it a different texture and adds some more color and some really neat distressing. Interesting. They're distress ink, right? So I picked a piece of lavender paper, and I am an eyeballer. I do not measure very often, so I'm just eyeballing and putting this in here to where it's got like a 1/2 inch at the bottom and a 1/2 inch on the side, and that way I can either trim that off, put a border over it, or I can spray it out and use it. Whatever works for me, depending on what I'm doing. So I did not practice any of this. I did not decide until literally as I'm doing this what I was going to do, what colors I was going to use. This was not very well thought out. So if it turns out good and you all like this video, then awesome. So the first thing I pull out is my Crushed Grapes Delusions Shimmer Spray. And this stuff is so, so pretty. It's a bright purple. I start up in that top left corner, and I'm going to start heavy up there and then lighten it up as I go down that corner. And so that way it's more saturated and it gives a little bit more dimension to the paper. I don't want it to be all the same. Now, if you want it all the same, then just use the same hand as you spray. You know, if you want it really heavy all over or light all over. So I keep turning my light on and off because certain things you can see with the light on and certain things you can't. So my outlight is fantastic for showing while it's in the box, but when I'm trying to get close, it's not. So I don't let that dry before I spray this Wilted Violet, and this is a distress ink that I'm going to spray. So the shimmer sprays, you don't spray with water. I don't know exactly what would happen if you spray with water, but it's not on the instructions on the bottle. So, but the distress inks, that's one of the things that you can do, like I said, to add texture and different, just a different feel for the paper and the ink. So I'm going to spray this Wilted Violet in the remaining spaces, and I'm going to do it kind of heavy towards the top and lighter towards the bottom, just like I did with the other one, and just spray the whole page. And I just love it. Now you always want to wipe off the nozzle when you're done. That way it doesn't dry there, get cakey, and then you gotta, poke a hole or, whatever. So now I've taken my water mister and I sprayed just the Distress Oxides. And I am shaking the box to get some of that water so you can see it dripping down the page. So I have dried it mostly, and where it looks shiny and wet, it's because it's shiny shimmer sprays. Now I didn't dry it completely, so I'm taking another piece of lavender paper and I am putting it down on here and just gently rubbing over, and you're going to see what it looks like. Now look at that. Isn't that awesome? I just love that. And look at all that spray ink that I am not losing And I can use that as a background. I can use that as a matte. I can use that and add more texture or color to it later. And then there it is. I lift up the stencil and there is some bleeding because I'm using paper. It's not a gessoed paper. The stencil I'm using is paper. There's going to be bleeding. So there's my other disclaimer. If you're going to do like I am doing and you use your Cricut to make a stencil, know that there is a serious chance, especially after you've used it multiple times, that there's going to be bleeding. The other thing is, since I can't wipe off my stencil, if I've got another color on there, it may show on my page. So with this purple, it did not, but in a little while, one of the things that I'll do a stencil pull, and you'll be able to see that there was other colors on the stencil before. So it pulls up with the yellow. Spoiler alert, there'll be yellow coming up. So I love the way this turned out. It's shiny in that top left corner and going down to the right bottom right corner. And I just think that's great. So I flip this over and that way I still have coverage on that place on the bottom. And I'm going to put a new thing down. I'm going to use my circles. And I love these circles. This is one of my newer ones I just made. I made it for... I think one of the challenges I had on scrapbooking with Amory was something to do with circles. And so I thought, well, what better way to get circles than to stencil? So I'm pointing out that I can put this in the corner and have a border again, or I could put it right in the middle and have a full border. So it's like an intentional spray. And that is what I do. So I'm trying to decide what colors I want to spray. Like I said, I did not plan any of this. Other than getting my box organized and getting everything out of it, that I did not plan. So this spray that I'm using is a Distress Oxide as well, and it is mustard seed. I am getting low on this, and I didn't think I used the yellow that much, but obviously I do. I spray directly in the middle, kind of heavy-handed. However, I'm going to lift that with some paper, and it's going to pull a lot of that up. So, spoiler alert again. So I do have another yellow that I love, and it is called Wild Honey. Obviously, I don't love it as much as the mustard seed because I just looked at the bottle and it's like 3/4 of the way full. So I get a piece of scrap paper and I lay it down and just gently pat it. So, but it's going to pick up all the extra ink on the circles and a lot of the ink from inside the circles. And so you can see all those colors. And that's because I've sprayed green and blue and God only knows what colors through there. So it pulled all that up because it's wet from the ink. I'm okay with that. If I was doing it for something specific, then I'd need a clean stencil. But I'm not. I just did it so I didn't lose the ink, and I will find a way to use that. Because I'm a penny pincher. You all are going to find that out. If you've watched any of my videos, you already know. I keep every daggone scrap I've got, unless it's like an itty-bitty sliver, and then sometimes I still keep them. It just depends. I'm super strange that way. So I don't need to dry it since I pretty much pulled all that ink up. So I get out my green shimmer spray, which is called Polished Jade. I was trying to read what it said, and it's in fancy writing. And I go all the way around the outside with the Polished Jade. And this is a shimmer spray, and I love the shimmer sprays. I probably said that 20 times in this video alone. I just think they're so gorgeous, and they are so shiny. And I mean, you can see it a little bit in this video, but in person, it is just beautiful. So I sprayed all the way around, and then I'm going to dry it, heat dry it. And then I want to get out something else. So I pull out my London Blue. This is also a shimmer spray, and I have used, I feel like a lot of that too. So I spray it in 6 different places, just kind of random. Clean off the nozzle like a good girl and put it away. And so then I'm going to take my heat tool to that and dry those 6 little spaces. And and then I'll pull the stencil off. It is not like an in-your-face stencil reveal, but it is very noticeable in my opinion, and it looks great. I love it, and it's going to be really fun to find a good use for this. plenty of ideas. See the yellow right there in the middle, and then all that shiny, shimmery green and all that shiny blue is in just random places. And I just love the way that turned out. And it didn't bleed as much through there, which is surprising, probably because it's my newest stencil. And I didn't spray with water at all on this, since the only Distress Oxide was that yellow in the middle, and it was distressed looking enough since I patted out the ink. So I'm going to do one more paper, background paper. And of course, these don't have to be my background papers. I could use them as mats for things or layers. I probably will use them as background papers because that's what I typically use a full stencil spray for. Now, this paper here is more like construction paper. It is not a thick cardstock. So I would never spray water on this. I will typically would not even spray my Distress inks on this. I will tap it out and use a splatter, the splatter technique. And I realize watching this, you can't see the ink as you splatter it as well in this video. So luckily, I'll show you some close-ups towards the end of this. And you can see some of it, but it doesn't show up very well, probably because of the distance and the lighting. I'm new at this whole video thing. So I am tapping this picked raspberry all around the page. And you can see that big blob right there. You can see a couple of the dots, but it is all over the page. Some of the spots are a little bigger than others. Some of them are, itty bitty. And you can tap it with your finger. You could tap it with utensil, whatever you are more comfortable with. I usually just use my finger because it's easier, but if I am tired, I will use, my scissors or something like that. Just be very careful because this ink does stain. I don't know what it would do. I mean, I can wipe it off on my Fiskars mat that you see underneath there with a wet paper towel, easy. I've got some alcohol that I keep on my table, and not the kind you drink, rubbing alcohol that I'll put on a piece of paper towel and wipe off. So I go ahead and I grab some faded jean because I don't mind if the blue and that pink blend together. So I didn't dry it first. If you are not wanting the colors to blend, I'm using the blue, London Blue Shimmer Spray now. If you don't want your colors to blend, then you need to let them dry in between colors. If you don't mind for them to blend, like these blues and the pinks, I didn't mind because that would be purple and I'm totally fine. That's like my number 2 favorite color. But if I was tapping out something like orange, I don't want that blending with the blue because that would not be pretty. So if you don't want them to blend, make sure you dry them first or they will. So I use my paper towel roll and pick up the extra ink. After I dried it a little, but some of those bigger polka dots and some of those shimmer sprays don't dry as fast. So I just rolled it out a little bit. And now I'm going to use a Mica Mist. This is another Tim Holtz Ranger, and I believe what I use is antique bronze. So this is a distress ink, so you got to shake it up as well. And I love the way that these look. They're so shiny, and they add a lot of extra shine and shimmer and brightness to your page. So it does not say on the bottle to add water to these like it does with the Distress Oxides. So I don't typically add water. Like I said, I don't add water to construction type paper that's not thicker cardstock. Or if a page is gessoed, you can add the water. It'll also distress the ink. So there it is up close. You can see all those shiny spots. And there is the Mica Mist. I have 3 Mica Mists that I got. I have the antique bronze. I think that's what I'm going to show you now, is the antique bronze. And then I have a tarnished, a brushed pewter and a tarnished brass. And I love working with them. Like I said, they're just like those shimmer sprays. They're just shiny, and they add lots of great color and shine to your page. So that is it for the pages I'm going to create for you. This is a page I did earlier. I decided I wanted to put some splattering on the bottom. So I just make it a point to cover the picture because I definitely don't want ink on there. And anything else that I might not want ink on, you just find a way to cover. So I have different things, papers and little cards and the old map from Disney that I lay over things so it doesn't get on there. And I just used the black shimmer spray, and I think it's called it's called Black Marble. So, but I always cover the picture because I do not want ink on my picture. Now, you can easily get that off of there if you wipe it up quickly off of your picture. But if it gets onto your paper somewhere that you don't want it, there's not a whole lot you can do except cover it with some kind of an embellishment. So that is it. That's about all I've got. But if you have other things that you would like to see, or you want have questions or want me to try, if I have it, I will. These are some scrap papers that I use to do some pickup of the extra ink off the paper. I like to do that because then I'm not wasting, and I can use that to map pages or pictures. I can use it for layers. So I have alcohol inks from Ranger. I have ink pads from a different handful of different places. I have the shimmer sprays, the distress oxides. I have ink pads, distress ink pads. I've got gesso. I've got embossing powders and ink pads. I am not really good with stamping, so I don't do a whole lot of it. And I'm just starting out with the embossing. So, but I'm more than happy to share any of that stuff with you, or try it out on a video with you all. Whatever it is you're interested in. I do have this one thing I'm about to pull out, and it's by Heidi Swapp. It's a marquee faux zinc kit. I don't have any clue what that is. I bought it at Tuesday morning for $1, and I'm going to try and figure it out and see if I can use that on paper. I have no clue. So we'll see. But anyway, thank you all for coming and watching. Have a great day, and I hope you all will come back again. And I hope you get a chance today to do something you love with someone you love. Happy scrapping.